Hello. Welcome to another episode of Understand Trees with Mitchell Anton McEacher. This is his face. As promised, this episode is about love. We're going to define it. I'm going to define it. I'm rolling up my sleeves to define it. And then we're going to talk about it because it's different than what you might think it is. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to an indie artist from Toronto. I don't think he's from Toronto, but he's an indie artist from Toronto. His name is Willem James Cowan, and this is his music. I've always been a big fan of him. He's a sweet young man. I can call men young now, being older. You'll never guess my age. But Willem is not my age, and so I'll call him a sweet young man. Where do we meet, James? I'm talking as if he's here. We met him. I met him at the middle of nowhere. He came to my show. Look at my hand. He played a song. He was friends with some other people who were coming in. It was, I think, Mitchell and Austin, and they're all friends. I can't remember. You don't know who I'm talking. You might not know who I'm talking about. But Willem came and he performed and it was great, and he's got such a folky, authentic vibe. Like, he's just wholesome. There's nothing pretentious about his music. When I listen to his music, I feel like I'm not being told anything, or even like, hey, listen. It's just the expression of some young man's mind. Like, this is what it's like to be Willem James Cowan. And so he's very smart, very intellectual music, very well written lyrics. He had, I remember one time talking to him, and while reading some of his stuff, he's kind of self-deprecating. And self-deprecation has its limits with me, and the limits are don't do it. Don't do it around me. You can do it wherever else you want, but do not self-deprecate around me. I mean, try not to. I try not to. Because when I realized what it was and why it existed, it made me very sad. And so I try to support everybody, but like with Willem, you're great, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. I support you. Don't self-deprecate. Don't call your music anything better than what it is, which is good. Okay. Maybe we can talk about self-deprecation in another episode. No. But in today's episode, we're going to talk about love. So, love, my definition of love, is to consciously and willingly suffer for something. To consciously and willingly suffer for something is love. So, now we can unpack that. Like, what does that even mean, Mitch? I thought love was going to the movies with somebody and yawning, like, or bringing somebody a flower, or engaging with in a conversation with somebody. That could be it too. So there's lots of like expressions of what we would call, affection or support or interest. But love is different, because love is what's there when you don't want to be, but you are. If that makes sense. So imagine that you're in a conversation with somebody who you don't really find all that interesting, right? And you're like, well, in your mind you're thinking, I probably don't want to be here anymore. Like, and then your head just kind of goes, and then like them on the receiving end, like, why would you not find what I'm saying interesting? Right? Like, come on. I'm telling you something. That must mean it's important, right? It's important to me. Why else am I sharing it to you? Well, that happens all the time. We don't listen to each other because we don't really care about a lot of what we talk about. I laugh because it's true. And so if you actually pay attention to them, like actually try to pay attention to somebody who's telling you a story that you're not all that interested in, you're probably going to feel like I don't want to do this. Like, you're going to suffer a bit. right? You're going to feel like this is boring or shut up or whatever it's going through your mind. Now, if you consciously and willingly suffer for that person, that is, if you pay attention to them, regardless of how it makes you feel in the moment, if you do that, that is an act of love. Love. Meaning that when we deny instant gratification, that's an act of love. Like whenever you get to the store and you're like, I really want a donut, but you're like, no, I already had some donuts earlier today. I should not have another donut, right? Well, by denying it's too good. I'm being distracted by Willem's music. If you deny a desire because you feel like it's not the right thing to do, that's an act of love. You're loving yourself. It never feels good. Think about that for a second. Like, love doesn't feel good a lot of the time. I'm checking my hair. Look at that. It's all weird today. How else do I put this? Like, okay, so imagine you go to the gym, right? You're at the gym and you're having a great time at the gym, and which is another way of saying you don't want to be there. And so or even before that, like you don't want to go to the gym. Who wants to go to the gym? Lots of people want to go to the gym, but you're like, don't want to go to the gym. Like me, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't go to the gym. But like if you say, I want to like lose 20 pounds or I want to get this figure or whatever, you're going to have to go and actively pursue that, right? It won't happen by sitting on the couch. And so the feeling of like not wanting to go is instant gratification. It's the equivalent of like, I don't want to go to the gym because I don't want to get up out of my chair, which is in the moment, right? You're in the moment, you're like, I don't want to get up out of my chair. And lots of us don't. But if we really, believe in ourselves and care about ourselves and love ourselves, then we push through that resistance. We push through that pain, the in-the-moment pain. Instant gratification. My good friend Jack Charles, who has his own YouTube channel, I think it's called Unpack with Jack. I'll double check. I'll add the link. Of course, I'll add the link. He's going to get linked to this video because he's the one who said to me once, and it was very succinct and insightful, as a lot of the things he says are, you're either meaningfully suffering or you're instant gratification. So like it's like dichotomy and like binaries are intrinsically false because there's a lot of gray area. But just for the sake of the definition of what art is, what love is, art was last time. In this moment, you're either sitting on the chair thinking about going to the gym and not wanting to and staying in the chair, or you're getting up and moving towards that goal. And if you choose to stay in the chair, it's not bad. It's not bad to stay in the chair sometimes. But if you perpetually stay in the chair because you don't want to get up, you will never go to the gym. And if you never go to the gym, then you'll never try to get what you want, which is whatever it is that you wanted. You wanted some kind of new physique or something, whatever you want. So like the last episode about art, we talked about self-expression and like telling your truth, right, is a form of art. Like revealing your authentic self to the world is art. It a lot of the time requires you to deal with anxiety and judgment and pain. But if you love yourself, then you'll do it, right? Because the alternative is to not do it, which is repression, I think, in a lot of cases. Not all of them, of course. I'm not saying that I know the answers and that whatever I'm saying is true and final. No. Everything I say, every single thing I say, no matter what, is a question. So don't ever think I'm right. I'm asking questions. I'm not telling you what to do. In the case of love, if you love yourself, you're going to consciously and willingly suffer. So consciously and willingly, those are two different words. When you're conscious of something, you're attending to it. Okay, so imagine that you have this goal of like writing a book. Okay, a lot of us have expressed that at one point or another. I know I have. I want to write a book, right? And so what I do is I think in my brain, oh, I want to do that. And then what happens is I need to do it. And then the movement towards that causes pain. A lot of psychic and a lot of physical pain just from sitting and stuff. But imagine like you're saying, okay, this is my goal to write a book. You have to consciously attend to the fact that it will be uncomfortable. So when you're in pain because you're thinking like, oh, writer's block, or oh my god, I need to do other work, or I'm not making any money, or I'm hungry, or whatever it is, whatever else is happening in your mind trying to pull you off of the act of writing is what you need to resist. So you have to consciously attend to the fact that you're not comfortable, which makes you even more uncomfortable. When most of the time we feel uncomfortable, we get out of the situation, because who wants to be uncomfortable? Well, that's an act of love, right? And you need to be willing to do that. Because if you're dragged, you can be conscious of pain, but if you're dragged to the pain, you're probably not going to be happy with it. Sam Harris made it such a great comparison in one of his talks. Sam Harris is the author of a bunch of books. He's one of the most intelligent people in the world right now. He should run for president. Sam, run for president. He said, if the pain of going to the gym, like if the pain of lifting weights was the symptom of an illness, it would be intolerable. Like you would go to the doctor immediately if you go to the emergency room if that happened to you. Imagine the pain of lifting weights, the discomfort of lifting weights was something that was happening to you against your will. But because you willingly move towards the goal of building muscle, it's like, oh, this is good pain, right? I can deal with this pain. This pain has a meaning in Peterson's terms. If you can give meaning to your suffering, then you've transformed it. And now all of a sudden it's information that you can use. Meaningless suffering in Jack, which is the equivalent of instant gratification. Not exactly the same, but they're for now it makes sense. You're meaningless suffering is hell. It's the worst thing in the world. I think hell is the place you put yourself in when you deny whatever it is that's happening. So you might not like what's happening, but if you accept it, it becomes information that you can use. If you deny it, then it stays the way it is, which is some kind of demon ripping your life away. Jacob's Ladder terms. So conscious, that means you're here, you're not drunk, you're like present with the experience. Okay, so I have a goal, my goal is to write a book. So you're conscious of the goal, and then you start moving towards your goal, which is writing the book, and you start to suffer. You start to think, writer's block, I can't do this, I don't like my sister, blah, blah, blah. You say, well, that's what you have to become conscious of. You have to be conscious of this pain. And then you have to be you have to be the one who chooses. You can't be told, you can't be sat down against your will, even if it's for your own good. You cannot be forced into a situation and expect to gain much from that situation. Because you're not in control. You're not the one governing your life. When we say live authentically, the word authentic comes from the word like author. Like, again, Eddie, that shit. So to live an authentic life is to be the author of your life. And you can only be the author of your life if you're willing to suffer for the things that you want. Otherwise, you're just consuming for no reason, instant gratification day in and day out, which always leaves us feeling empty. That's another thing. Like, why do this always blows my mind when I think about this. Okay, the gym analogy. Okay, so you're sitting on the couch, right? You're sitting on the couch and you're like, I want to go to the gym. Or maybe you planned it that you'd go to the gym at 5 or whatever. Okay, so it's approaching 5 and you're on the gym and you're on the couch. And you think, I also have Doritos in the cupboard. I'm going to go get a bag of Doritos and just chill. I'm going to watch an episode of my favorite show. and eat Doritos because that's easier, because Doritos taste good, right? Now, like, imagine you have that choice. You can either go to the gym or you can stay at home and eat Doritos. For this analogy, let's just assume those are the choices. On the one hand, if you stay home and eat the Doritos, you might enjoy the first couple Doritos like everybody does. But there's chemicals in those Doritos that not only eventually don't taste good anymore, they taste like what I imagine sorrow tastes like. Regret. There's like regret in every chip. And then, but there's also, well, regret. Like, you're sitting in the chair, like, fuck, I just ate a whole bag of Doritos. It's now 9 p.m. You know, I don't really feel good about myself right now. And the irony is, you actually consumed calories and did little physical movement, which is the equivalent of burning energy. And yet you feel worse than if you went to the gym. If you go to the gym, even if you don't do very much at the gym, you can still leave the gym feeling good about yourself. But imagine you go to the gym and you work out, okay? You are burning calories and you're putting your body through physical stress. And yet we leave the gym feeling better than before we entered it. So I just find that shocking. On the one hand, you know, you burned less energy and actually consumed energy, which is a good thing to do. You know, the lion that expends less energy and consumes more energy is going to be more successful down the road because it's getting what it needs with not as much effort, right? Like a lion, equivalent of a lion, like barely getting by, is expending too much energy and not consuming enough. If that's true, think about it. On the one side, you've gained energy for almost zero energy spent. You should feel good about yourself biologically, but that's not how we feel. We feel like shit. We wonder what do we, oh man, at least I do. This is like, I've done that a bunch of times in my life, and I'm thinking like, oh, I should have went to the gym. And on the other side, you go to the gym, you're fucking running and jumping and screaming and lifting weight and doing all of this against yourself, because yourself is like, what are we doing here? Why am I doing this? This is stupid. No more reps, no more reps, no more reps. We have to pay people to tell us what to do because we don't want to do it when we go to the gym. They're called coaches. You get a coach and the coach says, do this, and you're like, I don't really want to. But he's like, do it. You're paying me. And it's like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And then you feel better. Wow, what a weird paradox, right? That you actually feel better after you leave the gym, even though you spent a shitload of energy and you've punished yourself physically and probably mentally too. Do you ever wonder why? Well, I think I know why. Remember, everything I say is a question. That you have, I mean, it's a gooey word, but self-esteem. Self-esteem. You get self-esteem from willpower, from the ability to do something against your will, right? And that's an act of love. Every time you consciously and willingly suffer for something, you pump love into the world. You're giving fucking CPR to the world. Every time, no matter how big or small the act is. You know, resisting getting the chocolate bar at the store because you're bored is an act of love. Letting somebody in on the highway, even though you hate their car in their face, is an act of love. Sitting down to write, even when you don't feel like it, it's an act of love. Giving somebody your undivided attention, even if you don't care what they're talking about, is an act of love. Seeing past all of your prejudices and just listening to somebody, like dropping all of the things that you think are important for a moment to just hear what somebody else says and what they really think, is an act of love. There's so many, whenever you don't want to do what you're doing, but you do it anyways because you believe in something that isn't yet but could be if you try to make it, that's an act of love. And it's very important that we do more and more acts of love, because that's the one thing I want to make sure I add here is like, love is a hard word to talk about, because it's like, you know, it's like romance and tickling and orgasms and food. There's just so much that's inside the word that I don't want to say that this is the be all end all definition. But it's, if you just take it for what it is, that love isn't what we think it is, but it's what everything's made out of. Everything that matters. Because they've always said the universe is made out of love. I mean, like, it might be like, that doesn't make any sense. But now it does. The universe is made out of acts of love, I think. It's physically true, because it requires more energy for matter to move than it does for them to stay still. The Big Bang was an enormous explosion of energy. Imagine the buildup before it exploded. Like, we don't want to let go of things. You know? If you're standing across from somebody talking to them and you don't like what they're saying, you're going to want to leave. You're going to want to express your frustration with them and tell them why they're wrong. You're going to want to hold on to the control. You want to have the control. But if you let go and release that energy and ask a question or just give them your attention, that's an act of love. But you have to let go. And that hurts. It's scary. I find that fascinating, that it's so small and so big at the same time, that you actually are the Big Bang is equivalent to not having Doritos because you don't want to make yourself sick. It's like the biggest, most meaningful thing that ever occurred, and the most silly first world problem that there could be are the same. They're both acts of love. You'd be like, well, how can there be love in the Big Bang? The Big Bang's an inanimate experience. But that's because love isn't human. Humans are made of love. And I think love is just what everything is. And if you express yourself honestly and you suffer for what you believe in, you feel connected to something. And when you lie and cheat and eat Doritos, you feel disconnected from something. And I really think that loss or gain of something profound is love. You just you're either with it or without it. And when you're without it, you're scratching at the walls like a crazy rat. And we pretend and we create stories, big, long, complex stories about how the world should or should not work, and we call them politics or propaganda or social media or I have a job or whatever kind of silly story that you might believe thoroughly is your actual identity. But you're not that. You're what you do next. The thing that you're about to confront, because you're going to watch this video, the next thing that you interact with that you don't want to interact with, and you do interact with it against your will for some goal. I mean, you just don't walk around doing the opposite of what you want to do, although that would be an interesting experience. If you can do that, that's who you really are. The real you is made in those moments, consciously and willingly suffering for something that you don't understand, because you can just join the party. You can come join all of us question askers who don't know what's going on, because we're the only ones who tell the truth. because we're going to deal with the love as it comes, one choice at a time. And then you make the world a better place. There, you fix the world. Don't eat Doritos. I mean, eat Doritos. There's nothing wrong with Doritos. If what you do leaves you feeling worse than before you did it, don't do it again. And when you interact with that same experience in the future, resist it. And then you'll put more love into the world. I'm going to stop now because it's 25 minutes and we can talk more about these things in the future. I appreciate you. Thank you. We will see each other again.